again, guys, from Tampa Bay. Today I've got a review of you for the 2016 Kawasaki Concours 14. This is an often requested bike. It is a direct competitor to my current bike, one of them, the Yamaha FJR 1300. This has a very potent engine, derivative of the ZX14. First impressions, feels a heck of a lot like the FJR. About the same height, very tall saddle. I'm 6'2", 32-inch inseam, 240 pounds. Bars are in the same position, same width, even though they're set with a bigger rise. That's just because the triple tree is lower. Rider's triangle is identical. I can flat foot no problem. I can stand up. It's about an inch over the seat. Suspension feels like it's about adjusted in the middle. There's a little bit of a give. Pretty much like standard on the FJR. Very smooth idle. Very silent. And we're off. Feels pretty light. The front end definitely feels smaller, more of a sport bike feel than the FJR. Clutch is definitely lighter. I like that. It's a shorter throw too. First impressions of the comfort, not bad. Again, almost identical. I'll know a little bit more about the seat, obviously, at the end of this ride, but it feels like it definitely has more spring to it. There's more give, and I'm gonna say it's probably way better than the stock FJR seat, which is horrible. It's absolutely horrible. This feels very smooth. My legs are tucked into the tank well, but they do feel surprisingly a little bit wider than the FJR. The frame feels narrower, where your legs actually go down when you're on the ground. That is definitely a lot narrower than the FJR. This frame is not as wide at the top, right under the seat. So this is going to cater towards shorter riders a lot better than the FJR, which is very wide. And even though the saddle may not be super tall, shorter riders get their legs length eaten up just because it's so wide at the top. Now, looking at the controls here, this is a little long in the tooth. This is, well, a few years ago it was class leading, and now it's really due for a redesign. Not a lot of electronics on this guy. You have a separate dial potentiometer for the grip warmers. I don't believe this has ride-by-wire, so we don't get cruise control. I think it is, yeah, definitely has traction control. It has, really, that's about it. We don't get an electronic suspension. We don't get any throttle modes. We've got a headlight switch, we've got turn signals, we have a dedicated switch for the windscreen, which has a good speed. It is in between the older and the newer FJRs. It's not as fast as the current, it's not as slow as the old ones. And then you have a separate manually adjustable vent right down here at the base. Kind of like Goldwings or some Harleys. Very nice smooth takeoff. Transmission is absolutely perfect. You can barely feel it. Butter smooth. No vibration from the engine. Feels very electric. Clutch pull is light. It's not as light as a Super Tenere, but it is definitely light, very easy. This would be a lot better to go through traffic on than most bikes, including the FJR. Nice gauges, very easy to glance down and read. We've got high contrast orange needles. Neutral's easy to find. Even though the pull on the clutch is on the light side, keeping it in does still wear out your hand about the same as any other bike. It's that initial pull that's light, and then it kind of firms up right at the grip. So not great for going through a lot of stop and go traffic. Now the Speedo, that would just take some time for me to get used to. It is 190 plus speedometer. Obviously, it doesn't go 190. Obviously, you're not going to be in the upper range that much. So I'm really not a fan of gauges that are only half useful. Basically, you're only going to be using 180 degrees of that sweep most of the time. That'll take you to 110. I would rather much have a digital speedometer. I love analog taxo. This one redlines at 10,500. So it's a nice, free, high revving engine, which is 10.5 is low for a sport bike, but it's huge for a 1400cc engine. But like I said, this is a derivative of the ZX14, which is a just power and rev monster. We have headlight adjustment screws here manually, up and down, same as the FJR. We have a 12 volt power plug. You may not be able to see the stuff on camera because it's all black and it blends in. There's a blocked off port over there. Maybe that's an optional secondary power port or something, not really sure. We have a translucent, that's kind of strange, clutch reservoir on the left and right for the front brake. I say unusual because sunlight degrades the fluid somewhat. They're tinted, but they're not solid like some other bikes, even most other Kawasaki's. So I'm not sure why they would leave those translucent. Let's go up into top gear here. Is there a gear indicator? There might be. Let me see if I can find a button for shifting through modes or something. There we go. It's right under my finger, same position as the Yamaha mode button. So we have a nice little gauge package I already see. We've got a voltometer readout. We're at 14 volts. And the odometer says that's a trip odometer. Now we have some symbol in the bottom right corner. It looks like 2 rings or 2 circles and some arrows. I have not a clue what that is. And then a small clock right in the center. We have a temp gauge along the left vertically and a fuel gauge along the right vertically. Easy enough to glance at. We have an ambient temperature display. Oh, come on. There you go. Sorry, pedestrian, but you gotta wait. We got a group of like 20 guys with us. I'm in top gear. Let's see how many we have. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a 5-speed. We're in third now. Let's see what else we have. We have an average fuel economy and it's reading 36.3, and that's about normal for a demo ride. A lot of full throttle, a lot of lower speed, right on par with the FJR. I top out, no, I ride mine pretty hard, and I average 39, so that's nothing to complain about. Let's see what the current cruising says. So I'm in top gear, we're cruising at, see, I gotta kind of read the speedo, I can't just glance at it. Just over 50 miles an hour, and it's getting 57 gallons. 46, 47. So yeah, pretty much on par with any big sport touring bike there as far as mileage. What else do we have? We've got a range counter. And then we have a very awesome, handy feature, a real-time tire pressure monitor, front and rear. We're at 40 in the front, 43 in the rear. That's about the same I run on the FJR. Any large sport touring bike, that works really well, trust me. I love that. Oh, and there's the gear indicator. It's a tiny little number right in the upper left-hand corner. And there is also one of those eco displays, although I couldn't tell what the heck it said because it's a symbol. It's a triangle, the E, the C, and the O, so it just looked like 3 little circles. But it says eco, and that's, again, not active. It's just telling you that, hey, you are operating the throttle in a fuel-efficient manner. I have no idea why manufacturers are putting that on bikes. It's absolutely meaningless. It doesn't actually change your mileage, but whatever, it's there. Okay, so the gear indicator is right above that, and it's tiny. It's as tall as the top level of text. So here we go through some nice curves. The seat is slanted slightly down, and yes, it is beautifully comfortable. I don't know if a lot of people have to change this out for an aftermarket one if they do long distance, but I'll tell you what, it is 10 times more comfortable than the FJR seat. And I'm only mentioning the FJR because it is its direct competition, and I'm very used to it, having owned them since 2006. It's kind of pushing me into the tank, but not uncomfortably so. Very nice, smooth, controlled turning. Just going along in third there at 5,000 RPM. You can't even really feel the engine vibrating. It's butter smooth. It is more smooth than the FJR, especially in that rev range. 5,000 is right around when you're cruising on the freeway between 80 and 90. And I do have a buzz through the bars on the FJR, and this one doesn't have anything. Let's go up into... Now, oh, it is a 6-speed. That's funny. I don't know if I just didn't shift it hard enough into first or if there was some kind of speed lock, but now it says overdrive. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then OD. That's why I couldn't see the gear indicator. I wasn't looking for letters, I was looking for a number 6. Plenty of torque. We're at 60 miles an hour here, coming down a little bit. You know what, let's keep it in top gear. We'll just do a roll on after this corner. Drops down to, what are we at? 2,500 RPM at 50 miles an hour in top gear. Now the FJR's 5th gear is an overdrive. Don't think that having an overdrive is anything special. A lot of people think that you have to have 6 gears to have an overdrive, but the FJR has always had it. It's just 5th gear. Let's give it a little full throttle roll on, 50 miles an hour at 2,400 RPM, or actually a little lower than that. Not a lot. Not a lot. Okay, so having that taller last gear definitely makes a big difference compared to the FJR. You can roll on from 35 miles an hour in 5th on the FJR, and it goes, just like an electric motor. So let's try it down in 5th, a much fairer comparison. So now we're at 3,000 RPM, about 54 miles an hour. Full throttle roll on. That's better. Yep, that is much, much more comparable. So really this 6th gear is purely an extra gear. So up to 5th gear at least, performs exactly like the FJR. Nice freeway edition, I have to say. I like it when they still give you the excellent performance in the lower gears and simply add on the additional. I'm anxious to still try the new FJR with the revised gearbox, because not only did they add 6 gears, they changed the ratios for 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 5th. So it's going to be different, and I want to see how it compares. But so far this feels absolutely familiar. It feels quite heavy while you're braking. You get a bit of a nosedive, although the suspension, I don't know exactly how this one's set up. Riding it, accelerating, it's great. Very flat. Here's a wide open. Feels identical to the FJR's raw performance. That was right to the limit. Wasn't lifting the wheel up, however, traction control might be preventing that. Very flat while you're cornering, while you're accelerating, while you're riding. It just has that nosedive and gets that real heavy front end feeling when you get on the front brake. Not a big deal, not a problem. On the rear there, hopping over these little bumps, it does kind of want to fling you up real quick. So I have a feeling this suspension is set on the firm side, at least in the rear. There might be a preload adjustment, it might be dialed up a little bit, but it's got a really quick recovery, very snappy. It more sport bike than touring bike, let me put it that way. But it's still smack dab in the middle. Definitely not a sport bike, definitely not a comfy cruiser. That's probably why I love sport touring bikes, and probably why they are very unpopular and they only sell a couple thousand a year. But that's okay. Very controllable clutch. Throttle, I don't notice it, so that's about the best you can say. Mirrors are excellent. I see just a touch of my elbows, and that's about it. I can see behind me. They are very car mirror-like. They're huge. They're set forward a little bit and out fairly wide. But you can see, compared to my hand, they're huge. I mean, they are big old mirrors, you know? And this guy's saying, go ahead, go ahead. we're the first group, and they warned us that the people working the show here in the parking lot were newbies, and they would probably not have everything set up right first run through. So here we go. All right. Overall, very impressive. If you're in the market for a sport touring bike of any kind, I highly recommend that you test ride, if at all possible. I'll tell you what, if you're looking between the FJR and the Concours, it's really going to come down to features and looks at this point, because performance-wise, you'll be hard-pressed to tell the difference. They are just about identical. I'm very happy to hear that, because that means they both got it right. I absolutely love my bike. I absolutely love the way this one rides. But if you need the electronics, you like the just whatever features of one that you like over the other, they both have some unique things. So check out their spec sheets and just buy from there. Price wise, they're virtually identical. One big factor that you might be a deal breaker on, oop, I forgot, I'm in Kawasaki, I was going to up ahead, is the electronic suspension, which this doesn't have, at least yet. So there you go, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. We'll see you next time.